St. Catherine of Siena once wrote, "Become the person God intended you to be, and you will set the world on fire." They're true words, but they are tough words for us to hear and to grasp and to put into practice, like the readings that we have for this Sunday of the year. I think the main theme is that prophetic voices, while they may set the world on fire, are also unsettling voices, inconvenient voices, troubling voices that stir us out of complacency and, in a way, force us to make a stand for the truth, for God, for putting His will and teaching into practice in our lives. In the Old Testament, we hear about Jeremiah, arguably the greatest of Old Testament prophets, who had many troubles in his lifetime. He's in trouble with the establishment now because he has been spreading the word of the Lord that the people should surrender to the Babylonians who are besieging them. Hence the argument against him that he's demoralizing the people because he's preaching surrender rather than resistance to this foreign power that's threatening the people. So he's dropped into a cistern, into the mud, to silence him and to probably bring about his demise. But the king has him drawn out and rescued, even though there is much opposition to his message among the people. Jesus also ultimately goes to the cross because of the controversies and the provocative message he imparts to the people. So it's kind of ironic that the Prince of Peace does not engender much peace while he's alive in the world. And in fact, those who strive to follow his teaching closely will experience opposition. There will be, it will be a cause for division, even in families. Now, I think of an example about that. Just last week when I was on a retreat, I was speaking with a young man who is discerning a vocation to religious life. And his family just isn't sure about this whole idea. You know? And I've known others who, discerning a call to the priesthood, faced some, at best, indifference from parents and, at worst, I guess, outright opposition. How can we get him to change his mind? I had a mother ask me once. Seriously. So we can see, in family situations, the truth of Jesus' statement here that son against father, father against son, mother against daughter, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law. We can see that played out in our lives. And even in the life of the church in the United States, if I were to speak about Catholic social teaching consistently, people may take a dim view of the things that I say. Look at what's happened now. The Supreme Court strikes down Roe v. Wade, and everybody's up in arms. Everybody's excited. Everybody is divided about it. But if we as Catholics speak in defense of life and against abortion or euthanasia or injustices in society, we're not going to get a ticker tape parade. We're not going to get a pat on the back. We're going to get the kind of response that we see very vividly in the response to the Supreme Court decision recently. See? People protesting, people demonstrating, people shouting in the street, carrying signs. And this is the sort of situation I think Jesus is pointing to if we take the message to heart and we proclaim the message with courage. We're going to experience that kind of fraught atmosphere as people speak up and demonstrate against the message. So Paul, the author of the letter to the Hebrews, calls us to persevere courageously despite all of the sufferings we may experience in this life, because our faith in God is something that will ultimately be rewarded, okay, for our faithful service and proclamation of the truth to a world that is many times deaf to it. Okay. So as we contemplate the scripture readings and recognize the difficulty of the task at hand, we can think this week, how can I embody a prophetic voice in our own society? How can I be an agent of setting the world on fire?